Good morning, students. Welcome to Smart World School of Complete Education. Let us study Lesson 10 Baji Prabhu and the Memorable Battle of Gorkhind. Shivaji conquers Panhala, Adil Shah gets angry. While Bijapur was still mourning the death of Afzal Khan and the complete rout of his army, Shivaji captured Panhala fort from the Bijapur garrison. This threw Adil Shah into a fit of wild rage. He could neither eat nor sleep. He dispatched another Sardar Sidi Jauhar against Shivaji. Sidi Jauhar had a huge army with him. Fazal Khan, who wanted to avenge his father's death, also accompanied him. The siege of Panhalgarh. Sidi Jauhar was brave but ruthless. He was a strict disciplinarian. He laid siege to Panhalgarh and confined Shivaji within the fort. The rainy season was approaching, and Shivaji thought that once the rains came, Sidi Jauhar would lift the siege. But Sidi Jauhar did nothing of the kind. On the contrary, with the arrival of monsoon, he further tightened the siege. Supplies in the forts were running out. Shivaji was in a fix. Since he could not force Sidi Jauhar to lift the siege by an open battle, he decided to deceive Sidi Jauhar by a clever ruse. He sent a message to Sidi Jauhar to the effect that he would shortly surrender the fort. Sidi was happy. Sidi's troops were already tired of the long siege. They were already pleased to hear Shivaji's agreed to surrender. They relaxed the watch and indulged in food, drink, and music. Shivaji escapes from the siege. A plan was hit upon to escape from the siege. Two palanquins were kept ready. One was meant for Shivaji, in which he would proceed using a difficult route. The other would be occupied by another person disguised as Shivaji. The palanquin was to leave by Rajadandi. The other palanquin would be easily spotted by enemy forces and it would be captured by them. While the enemy celebrated the capture of Shivaji, the real Shivaji would escape the brave route. This was the plan, but who would thus impersonate Shivaji? Such an impersonation meant certain death, but yet a brave youth undertook this task. He resembled Shivaji in looks and even bore the same name. He was a hairdresser in Shivaji's service. He was courageous and shrewd. As planned, the palanquin carried this other Shivaji came out of Rajadandi. It was dark and it was raining heavily. Still, some enemy soldiers were keeping watch. They captured the palanquin. They thought they had caught Shivaji himself and took the palanquin to Siddiqui's camp. Jubilations began in the camp. In the meanwhile, Shivaji escaped from the fort by the difficult route. He was accompanied by Baji Prabhu Deshpande and some select soldiers. The Bandal Deshmukh army accompanied them. After some time, the impersonation of other Shivaji was exposed. The furious Siddhi killed him and then and there. This Shivaji sacrificed his own life in the cause of Shivaji and Swaraj. Thus, he became immortal. When the Siddhi learned that Shivaji had given him the slip, he was livid with rage. Immediately, he dispatched his Sardar Siddhi Masoud, accompanied by a big army in hot pursuit of Shivaji. At daybreak, the pursuing horsemen caught up with Shivaji at the Pandharpani stream. Shivaji was now in real trouble. With the greatest difficulty, he and his men crossed Gorkhind. Baji Prabhu the Brave. The angry troops of Siddhi were fast galloping towards Gorkhind Pass. Shivaji saw this. It was impossible to reach Vishalgarh before the enemy overtook them. He said to Baji Prabhu, Baji, this is a very critical situation. The road ahead is steep and the enemy is right on our heels. It is now impossible to reach Vishalgarh, so let us turn back and face the enemy. Baji Prabhu understood the great agitation going on in Shivaji's mind. The enemy was fast approaching the pass. The life was of Shivaji was in danger, and therefore Swaraj was in danger. He said, Maharaj, you must proceed to Vishalgarh. Take a handful of soldiers with you. I shall defend this pass and will not let the enemy cross it. I shall lay down my life in defense of this pass, if need be. If I die, there will be many other Bajis to take my place, but no one can replace you. As Swaraj needs you, the enemy will attack in large numbers. We cannot hold out against them with our limited force. Please do not wait. Go ahead. We shall stop the enemy at entrance to the pass. We shall not let him advance till we know that you have reached Vishalgarh safely. Baji Prabhu's brave words and sense of loyalty brought tears to Shivaji's eyes. He was most unwillingly to sacrifice this gem of man for his personal safety. But he had no time to think of these things. He wanted to achieve his ideal of Swaraj. He fondly embraced Baji and said, We shall move ahead towards Vishalgarh. As soon as we gain the fort, guns will be fired. That will be the signal of our safe arrival. As soon as you hear the gunfire, abandon the pass and follow us to the fort. Baji's defense of Kodavkin Pass. So Shivaji left for Vishalgarh, leaving Baji Prabhu to defend the pass. Baji made a low bow to the receding figure of Shivaji and then prepared himself for battle. He took a sword in his hand and stood at the entrance of the pass. He divided his company of the soldiers into small groups and posted them at suitable points. The Mavlas took their position and collected huge boulders and stones to use as weapons. The Mavlas across the pass were now a strong barrier in the path of enemy. By this time, the enemy had reached the mouth of the pass, and everyone here could hear the war cries. Baji Prabhu addressed his troops and said, "My brave soldiers and comrades, be prepared. You may die fighting, but do not desert your post. Do not allow the enemy to conquer the pass, no matter what price has to be paid." So Baji Prabhu and his Mavlas stood at the mouth of the pass, firm and fearless, awaiting the enemy. The pass was difficult to cross, there being only a narrow and zigzag passage across it. At the other end, Shivaji was speeding towards Vishalgarh. The fort was still some distance away, and it would take Shivaji at least 2 hours to reach it. If Baji Prabhu could hold out for those 2 hours, Shivaji would be safe. The Battle of Godkhind. By now, the enemy was at the mouth of the pass where a fierce battle was in progress. The Mavlas, who were adept at the use of sling, harassed the enemies with showers of stones and boulders from hilltop and killed many of them. The first batch of attacking troops withdrew in confusion. Another batch took their place. Baji Prabhu urged his troops into the attack. The Maratha war Har Har Mahadev echoed through the hills, and the brave Mavlas cut down the enemy troops in the fierce, desperate attack. Through the din of battle, he heard the captain shouting encouragement to them. "Bravo, my lads, go ahead, attack and destroy the enemy." The second batch of the enemy troop was also defeated. Shivaji was by now almost at the foot of Vishalgarh. Vishalgarh was also besieged by enemies. Shivaji fought through the ranks of besieging troops and was last lap of his ride to safety. Baji the Brave. In the meantime, the battle at the pass continues unabated. Enraged at the defeat of his first two attacks, Sidi Masood organized and dispatched a third batch of troops against Baji Prabhu and his brave men. They surrounded Baji Prabhu, who fought with great courage, threw wounded and attacked from all sides with his body covered with blood. Baji would not withdraw from pass but continued fighting at the same time. He urged his Mavlas to attack the enemy. Disheartened by the fearful attack, the enemy again withdrew, but Baji was fatally wounded. He was hanging on to life to hear the sound of gunfire from Vishalgarh. Godkhind becomes Pavankind, and then the sound of gunfire was heard from Vishalgarh. "Maharaj has reached Vishalgarh. I have done my duty. Now I can die in peace." So saying, Baji breathed his last on his historic battlefield. When Shivaji heard the news on Vishalgarh, he was greatly grieved. He exclaimed, "Baji Prabhu Deshpande laid down his life on the battlefield in the cause of Swaraj. The Bandals gave a great battle. It was because of brave patriots like Baji Prabhu that Swaraj was won. Their blood made the Godkhind a place holy in Swaraj. Godkhind was immortal in history as Pavankind. We pay a repeated homage to brave Baji Prabhu and his brave men."